We thank Apt Electronics and Appliances, our title sponsor here on Live from My Office. The month is May, and Apt, of course, is your number one destination for the home and your number one destination for everything furniture. I sleep on an Apt mattress. I sit in an Apt recliner. I may have Apt furniture I've forgotten about. But with an upcoming expansion of the furniture showroom, which is going to provide an additional 30,000 square feet, I don't even know where they're going to put that. Apt is the perfect place to get inspired for a living room makeover and more. Maybe a complete home update if you like. Maybe a chair and a half, or maybe a recliner. Maybe a new mattress. All right, now I'm just channeling me. Explore rugs and sofas and dining tables and mattresses and more with trend-setting brands like Palliser and FlexSteel, Hooker Furniture, and, of course, Our House as well. Visit the store in Glenview to shop stylish furniture in person or explore the collection at apt.com. For free and home delivery, professional installation, and complete satisfaction, shop Apt, pleasing people since 1936. And don't forget, if you use the promo code Cochran25, spend $150 or more, and they'll give you $25 back. Save $25 with the promo code Cochran25 in store and at apt.com. Well, this is another exciting episode, and I mean excitement when I talk to you kids. I'm live from my office. If you're watching on YouTube, the face on the other section of the screen is the great Paul Douglas, a brilliant, brilliant scientist, and a very goofy man. Hello, Paul. Hello, Steve. Nice to talk to you again.
Thank you.
I must ask you again, we encourage people to go to the YouTube channel, Live from My Office. Is that the Studio 54 disco ball above your head there in your space?
It is. I was able to salvage that from Studio 54, where I had some of my best moments of disco dancing back in the 70s. It brings back amazing memories. I've converted it into a Doppler, so the neighbors won't get pissed off. But
well done.
Yeah, we're scanning the neighborhood right now.
Oh, nice. Well done. Now, each of those are tiny video screens or tiny cameras. I think of, the Sphere in Vegas, and that's a miniaturized sphere of sorts. Or do you just put tiny entertainers in there?
It's a death orb.
That works too.
Yeah.
So before we begin with the important questions, I just want to tell you a quick story. So the family, well, not the family, my wife and I, and a couple other couples went to Hawaii in March and spent a couple weeks there. We also were on Kauai. We took a helicopter tour,
nice.
In and out of the valleys and things. It was great. And the helicopter pilot talked about Jurassic Park and how his father had flown for those helicopter shots in Jurassic Park and also Magnum PI, and how he flies whenever there's, helicopter shots needed now. And those guys are great and all that. But, of course, it brings up the fact that you turned down a path that you easily could have taken as a movie star in the original Jurassic Park and came back to your love of science and the weather. So tell people what you did for Jurassic Park.
Well, when I was younger and way more foolish, I started a three-dimensional weather graphics company called Earthwatch because I was bored with the weather graphics I was using on TV, Channel 11 here in the Twin Cities. I mean, they all looked the same, and I wanted something different. And I went to an AMS, American Meteorological Society convention talk, and a Japanese gentleman gave a video presentation, a concept of three-dimensional weather, and he was flying through valleys with simulated rain and lightning, and it was like a space shuttle view. It was, Steve, it was as if Walt Disney
couldn't have been cooler
doing the weather. And it just blew me away, and he got a standing ovation. Every TV meteorologist was on their feet, clapping and hooting. I went up to him and I said, "This is great. I'd love to use this for the Twin Cities for my viewers." And he laughed at me and he said, "This requires a Fujitsu supercomputer. Do you have $5 million?" And I said, I think I remember saying, "Will you take a check?" So anyway, he pissed me off. And I went back.
So he goes from being this brilliant performance artist of this incredible science to a dick.
Yeah.
But it made you mad enough that you went back and found your own guy.
The third developer I went to, there was trial and error, as there usually is. He was able to turn the vision into a reality for a fraction of the cost and we licensed these graphic systems from Silicon Graphics. At the time, you needed some pretty heavy iron, a pretty significant video processing to be able to do three-dimensional visualizations where you put in the track and it creates this 3D perspective, kind of like looking out the window of the space shuttle. And I wanted that. And it took a couple of years, but he was able to make that happen. And we launched it in the Twin Cities called Earthwatch. Somehow news got back to Spielberg's company, Amblin Entertainment, that there were these crazy guys trying to do 3D weather. And I got a call from one of his representatives who wanted to know if we'd be interested in doing graphics. And we said, okay, yeah, sure. I had just read the book, Jurassic Park, and so I knew the plot line.
They told you what the movie was at that point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So we created these visuals. We went out to Universal Studios for the filming to do what Spielberg wanted. My chief developer, my partner, the guy that created this, I was just the idea guy, but he actually created this. But he had to hide under one of the tables in the control room and keep hitting the space bar to make it do the flight path that Spielberg wanted. But
well, that's fascinating. So he had a monitor under the table.
Yeah.
And he's hiding under the table.
Yes.
And he's got to have this impeccable timing to
Yes.
space bar at the right time.
Yes. So we did that, and I had my 15-minute brush with fame. I had a chance to chat with Steve. May I call him Steve?
Sure.
Mr. Spielberg.
And you had a cameo.
Not in Jurassic Park, in Twister.
Oh, that's right. That was Twister. You're right.
Yeah.
But that's what happens. Hollywood typecast for you. You know, once you're a weather genius in one movie, you got to be a weather genius in all of them. It's the same way with me in porn.
I'm going to have nightmares, but okay.
Get in line.
Yeah, so we did the graphics for Jurassic Park. The movie comes out, it's a big hit, and we can see our scenes, the control room scenes, and we used imagery from Hurricane Andrew, which hit just south of Miami. I think it was 1992, and we draped that over this three-dimensional topography of Jurassic Park, and we did all these different flight paths, and Steve liked it. Later, a year or two later, they called us back and said, hey, we're making a little movie about twisters. We'd love to use your graphics in that. And I'm like, sure. And I'm very naive. I assumed they would pay us. Yeah, I had a little cameo. When I walk in to this barn in Ames, Iowa, for the filming of these control room scenes, they said, hey, Paul, you want a line in the movie? And I'm thinking, romantic scene with Helen Hunt.
Yeah, right. Love scene.
Maybe a shower scene of some sort. Mm-hmm. And they're like, no, they're restraining order.
Well, that's what happened with me on Grumpy Old Men, but my shower scene was with Walter Matthau.
Okay, you have the freedom to do that. It's ill-advised.
So you get the union money for the line in the movie, but you must have gotten millions for the technology. No. Yeah, I still get paychecks from Twister for my one line. Hey, Bryce, you better come here and take a look at this, which I think is the highlight of the movie. Nobody else did. No question.
But I got a check once for 1 cent.
Yeah, I still get those.
And I framed that. This is God tapping you on the shoulder, reminding you are not a big deal.
Well, I did like 5 movies. They all still pay. And over the course of the 30 years, because I was doing these in the early 90s, and we're talking about the same time frame for the 2 movies you were in, and I still get checks for those. Now, all in, I don't know, 50 grand maybe over 30 years.
Wow. No, I wasn't anywhere close to that.
Now, $1. $1.10, $1.12.
What can I say? I mean, you didn't do it for the money. You did it for the fame and the adulation.
I'm just surprised Clooney didn't call us about Ocean's 11 initially, because I think we would have been great. You could have been the weather guy, and I could have been the guy valet parking at the Venetian. I'm not sure what my role would have been. No, I would have been the muscle. I would have been the guy behind the guy, making sure nobody hurt Clooney.
Yeah. I can see that. The weirdest part of the story with Spielberg is that at one point we tried to send his company an invoice for all the work we had done, hundreds of hours, thinking they would pay us. And I got a call back and said, Paul, we're not going to pay you. Didn't realize you guys were a nonprofit. I mean,
It's right.
we invested a lot of time and energy into giving you what you wanted. He said, no, Paul, we're still not going to pay you. Here's what we will allow you to do. You can send out a press release with your name and Steven Spielberg's name. That will be enough. And I remember my partner was really pissed. He wanted to tear me apart because it's like we've wasted hundreds of hours on this boondoggle. And I'm like, well, maybe it'll help from a marketing standpoint. If it's good enough for Spielberg, it's good enough for a TV station in Des Moines. And that was the case. We used that to promote Earthwatch. Steven Spielberg, Twister, Jurassic Park.
And I'm sure it did turn into a lot of sales, right? It must have.
It did. It turned into hundreds of sales worldwide. But I remember at the time just being flummoxed, just gobsmacked that, wait, they're not going to pay us for the work we did?
Well, where would they come up with the money?
It all turned out just fine, but it was kind of a surreal experience getting to spend some time with Steve.
There is a theory that the only way you get to be that rich is to not give money to anyone if you don't have to. And there's some great Michael Jordan stories here that are similar to it. One involves a piano company where he and his wife wanted baby grand pianos. By the way, Michael, if you're watching, unsubstantiated rumor, feel free to sue me. But two baby grands brought to the house, and they were not returned. And the older gentleman that owned the place said, where's the money? Because his son, apparently someone else who was running the store, had, been starstruck and gave the Jordans the pianos, and then same deal, invoice them and get the money. And they were told, well, you could tell people that Michael Jordan has two of your pianos. He sent a truck that day with two guys to take the pianos. The Chicago way.
Yes, tough justice.
All right, my friend.
Not heard that.
I want to talk about this weather we're living in, this end of days Armageddon weather we're living in. And let's go maybe a little more calendar specific than current. We have not had a white Christmas in Chicago in years. And it feels almost as if winter has moved, where November, December are actually rather mild, regularly in the 40s. And then January into March, pretty miserable, kind of the old November, December. April, incredibly wet, and May, cold. As a matter of fact, we're recording this on May 22nd, and it's 4 degrees. Oh, it's about 50 for the high today, 50, low 50s. So is there literally a shift in seasons going on?
Yeah, there is. The atmosphere is warming, no question of that. So are the oceans, but it's uneven, it's lumpy, and we're seeing some shifts in how the jet stream behaves. There seems to be more weather whiplash going from cold to hot to cold to hot. Scientists have been able to quantify that it's real. It's not your imagination, that we are seeing more crazy swings in temperature and in moisture. The wets are getting wetter, the dries are getting drier, and it's increasingly unusual to get average weather, normal weather. And so, we're seeing those changes in the jet stream. And in terms of no snow for Chicago in the winters, I mean, it's a trend. We're warming up. Chicago is going to have more of a climate similar to Kansas City or St. Louis or Nashville as the years advance. And more
so it is plottable.
Falling as rain.
The trend is plottable, and it will continue. Now, you're in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Are you seeing a similar thing?
Yeah, we still have winter. It still gets cold, but we don't get the volume of Arctic air. The week after week below zero, which was typical as recently as the 70s. We get a few. Now zero is breaking news, and the local stations lead with it.
Well,
Zero.
when I spent 6 years there. That's when you and I became friends. And there were 2 weeks in December where the high never got above zero. You could count on it. You could plan on it every year. That's gone, apparently.
It is. We're seeing 50s and 60s in December. And again, we still get Arctic slaps. but the Arctic air isn't as cold and it doesn't stick around as long. So you can see it. If you just plot the number of sub-zero lows since 1970, we're seeing fewer. And that's not just the Twin Cities, it's all of the northern tier cities. So things
So it's
are
a
warming.
symptom of climate change?
Yes.
So it is dangerous in the big picture packaged together with all the other issues we have with climate change. It's not just to get used to it, things change.
No, and people say, well, it's cyclical. I don't know. We've almost doubled the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, and that corresponds with a warming trend. It's pretty cut and dry. I mean, science has never settled, but there's a mountain of evidence that it is warming up. It's us. There are solutions. Today, those solutions, we've moved the goalposts back with some of the changes that we're seeing at a federal level right now. And by just ignoring climate change or not using the term climate change, it's not going to make it go away.
Yeah, it's idiotic.
Because now we'll be flying blind, and we're going to have these crazy billion-dollar disasters every few days. And FEMA may or may not show up to help communities suffering. That's already going on right now in Kentucky. Look at Kentucky and St. Louis. The mayor pleading for, where's FEMA? We need help. Where are the reinforcements?
They didn't even show up, right?
No. So I'm perpetually paranoid, but the cuts at NOAA, the cuts at research, the staffing issues at these local weather service offices, at some point it's going to bite people in the ass.
Well, that's a perfect segue into the other topic that is the most topical, I suppose. And that is the need for weather forecasting to get on an airplane and fly from here to there and to have accurate, current, proper forecasting. You don't have enough, the air traffic controllers, having one guy named Phil having to handle 180 flights, a little crazy, right? But if the pilots can't get a forecast without clicking on their weather app on their phone, that seems problematic as well.
It does. We are degrading the best weather service in the world. We have the most severe weather of any nation on Earth, Steve.
Is that right?
We probably deserve a weather service that's up to the task. And
no kidding.
By cutting 10, 20% of the staff, they're shifting people around. If they don't have enough staff in one office, they temporarily bring in more staff. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's like applying duct tape to everything and hoping it all works out. And maybe it will. But we should not assume that you're going to get the tornado warning 20 minutes before the tornado rips through your neighborhood. You're not going to get the flood warning before water starts lapping at your feet.
So we take all the technology that we've developed and are rightfully using in other areas, and we're not using it in an area to keep people safe. Because what you're talking about is turning the clock back to an era where we didn't have the stuff we have now. We don't have the safety because it's a choice being made, not because it's not available.
And by cutting research, it's not just cutting staffing, but cutting research. Scientists, we assume that the weather forecasts will continue to improve. We assume that each year we'll get a little bit better at predicting hurricanes and floods and tornadoes. We can't make those assumptions now because some of the leading scientists who focused on cutting-edge research, trying to make things better and more accurate and more reliable, those people are gone, and they're not coming back. And this could set NOAA back 10, 20 years.
You know more about
hyperbole, but I worry about what we're doing. It's a self-inflicted wound.
Yeah, and I suppose, I'm just spitballing here, but if somebody just gave me a new $400 million airplane and I didn't have a proper weather forecast to fly it, I wouldn't be any safer than the guy in the Cessna.
I think we should use that $400 million 740 fly into hurricanes.
That would be fantastic.
I think turning that into a Hurricane Hunter plane is the best thing I've heard.
Plus, Trump's all about saving money. All about saving money. He uses the lowest quality gold paint in the Oval Office. He's gone cubic zirconia wherever he can, but he could combine business trips with hurricane hunting.
I think there's something there. And look,
Yeah.
I just
You almost dropped into an evil scientist voice there. I think there's something there.
I don't know.
Huh.
We deserve, look, whatever you're doing in life, you want the best tools.
Of course.
Whether you're building a cabinet or fixing your toilet, I mean, you want the best tools. And we've had the best tools, but right now we are purposefully dulling those tools and making them less effective. And so, weather balloons, there are about 100 weather balloons that are launched twice a day all across the United States, Alaska, Puerto Rico. But as many as a dozen of these sites have cut back on weather balloons. And you say, well, who cares? It's just a balloon rising up through the atmosphere. Meteorologists use that data to determine if the atmosphere is ripe for tornadoes or
kind
flooding.
of important.
Yeah, it's very important. The atmosphere is 12 miles thick. You need a measurement through the entire atmosphere. And it's not just a minor inconvenience. You're putting low octane fuel into the engine and then wondering why the performance has gone down. So if you put junk in, you get junk out. And so I'm not alone. A lot of meteorologists concerned about the accuracy of weather forecasts in general, but especially on the big weather days, the big tornado days in Chicago.
Yeah.
The flood situations.
We're just getting into that season now.
So, and there are theories that, well, they're just paving the way for the private sector to go in and do it much more economically, much more efficiently. I have a private business. I don't know of any private weather company on the planet that could do what NOAA does. I mean, with a constellation of weather satellites.
Well, even if it could, it would take years to get to that point.
Yes, it
And
would.
all of the planes that fly now need proper weather now.
Yes, they do.
All of the people that live in Tornado Alley or wherever severe weather happens, which is everywhere now, we need data now. So if you want to shift to that, if you want to shift to the private model, great. But understand that it's going to take time to get there. It's not going to happen because you want it to happen today, you orange freak. I'm sorry, that was me. That came out.
The Doge boys, I mean, my personal opinion, it's a classic case of ready, fire, aim. They didn't do the research. Instead of using a chainsaw, maybe a scalpel would have been appropriate. And by everything I hear, my contacts at NOAA, they were underfunded and understaffed before all this happened. Last year, they were holding it together with duct tape and chewing gum. So now they're scrambling, trying to meet their mission of keeping Americans safe, but they're doing so with one hand tied behind their back.
You just got back from a trip to Europe. A two-part question, but the first part is, are you comfortable flying? And I'm not just talking about what's going on in Newark. Are you less comfortable flying now because of what you know about the weather circumstances, but also about ATC?
I think, and I've flown a lot over the years. It's safer than driving, at least it has been. But yeah, I'm a little more uncomfortable, and I sure as heck wouldn't fly into Newark anytime soon, based on what we're hearing. But it wasn't limited to Newark. There were outages in Denver. So I think it's a classic case of we don't know what we don't know. We don't know if our individual flight is being impacted. The pilot doesn't come on the radio and tell the passengers, hey, we just lost contact with ground control.
Yeah.
So, yeah, again, we shouldn't make assumptions, and cutting into some of these government systems for the sake of expediency and trying to find savings. I think we're not just cutting into fat, we're cutting into bone.
Well, and the Musk disaster, which is exactly what it was, never had to happen because he paid $250 million or so of his own money for access, and the access to go in with his idea of how to run government agencies has caused incredible pain and disastrous circumstances, which we're going to pay for. I don't know if it takes a plane falling out of the sky or, a series of horrific weather events. Actually, saying that out loud, it will take a plane crash. God forbid. But it'll take a plane crash because politicians will write off weather. They'll continue to write it off. They write off what they don't understand. They'll say, well, it happens. What are you going to do? It's weather. But when planes start falling out of the sky, that's when they'll have to pay attention.
I think there's merit to your argument, and it's sad, but that is often the case. People don't focus attention until there's a tragedy, and you may very well be right. I hope you're not.
Me too.
But
I've been wrong once or twice.
If you're not just a little bit paranoid about what's happening right now, you're not paying attention.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. All right, so last week, again, this is being recorded on May 22nd. Last week, my family, we were all gathered in upstate New York, where I grew up, for a family funeral. Brother-in-law passed, sadly, but while we're there, the phone never stops. And suddenly there's an alert on my phone that a dust storm is approaching Chicago. I checked to see if the date was set to 1932, if Henry Fonda was nearby, if there were grapes, if there was wrath, and none of that applied. How is it possible that we had a dust storm in Illinois a week ago? And where did that come from? Is it an anomaly?
It is an anomaly. It's rare, not totally unprecedented. On rare occasions, Chicagoland can in fact see dust storms. This particular event on May 16th was triggered by severe thunderstorms over central Illinois, and these storms produced outflow, a downdraft of rain-cooled and hail-cooled air, which triggered winds of 60 miles an hour. So the origination was this cluster of storms upwind over central Illinois. That whipped that gust front. It wasn't a tornado, it was straight line winds, but those winds were blowing at 60 miles an hour away from the thunderstorm. You can think of it as severe thunderstorm exhaust. And that whipped up these clouds of dust because it's been so dry, downstate.
So all that farmland soil gets picked.
Yes.
And then turns into a giant cloud, not a tornadic situation.
Nope.
Just a giant cloud.
Just a giant cloud, yeah. The dust being hurled downwind towards Chicago. So, yeah, it must have been apocalyptic, right? Not the kind of thing you expect, kind of a freak weather event. But we're seeing more of these freak weather events.
Well, wouldn't you say the fires in California were a product of a freak weather event because of those winds? I mean, those winds exist in California all the time, and there is literally a fire season. But to combine those two, that was unusual, yes?
Yes. Fire season used to be 6 months, 7 months in California. Now it's year-round. And we had hurricane-force winds, sustained hurricane-force winds. I don't care what kind of equipment you have. Choppers, airplanes. First of all, a lot of aircraft can't fly in those conditions. It's unsafe for the pilots. They're trying to keep the pilots alive. So at the height of the, apocalypse in Malibu and Palisades, there was nothing they could do but watch it burn. And I don't care what kind of equipment you have, how many firefighters, if you have sustained winds of 60, 70 miles an hour with gusts over 100, there's nothing you can do.
And that will happen again.
I think it will. It's people building in areas they probably shouldn't be building. And the fact that, we're heating up the atmosphere, which is drying out California. There's more dry scrub, more ammunition, more fuel for these fires. So I think it's a trend, and we're seeing fires in places that don't normally get fires. Even in the spring, we've had fires here in Minnesota up over the Arrowhead. Tens of thousands of acres engulfed north of Duluth, and it's a little weird for May, even here. So
when the discussion continues to go on in places like Florida and the Carolina coast of your homes have been destroyed, you can rebuild. We're not going to insure them, but you can rebuild. But that seems like that is a trend headed in the very wrong direction, that the coastlines are not safe. And if you're rich enough to build and lose a home, good for you. But people are in great danger there. I mean, the storm that hit the Gulf a year ago, they hadn't had a direct hit off the Gulf in that manner. And I don't know what I was told, 75, 100 years, whatever the case was. So Mother Nature's doing exactly what she wants, and she's pissed.
Yeah. She's these climate-fueled disasters. The hurricane would have hit anyway, even without all of the greenhouse gas that's accumulating, that's man-made. But the fact that the oceans are warmer, and you can measure that, that's not a model, that's measuring the temperature of the ocean. Seas are rising, you can measure that. There's more fuel. There's more water vapor. You warm things up a few degrees, basic physics. The atmosphere can hold more water. And what's ironic with Asheville and that tragedy is that Asheville...
How do you have a hurricane in a mountain?
Yeah.
I mean, that was biblical.
Yeah, but it's meteorological too. It's called orographic lifting. If you have wet air rising up and over a mountain chain, and I know some people will say, well, they're not real mountains. Well, they're pretty big hills, and the atmosphere, the air rising up and over those hills, it's like wringing out a wet dishcloth. You're just training a fire hose of moisture. And what's ironic, Steve, is that many people moved to Asheville because they thought it was a climate haven. They thought they could escape the rising seas and the hurricanes, but, we're discovering over time, the hard way, that nobody is totally immune. Certainly the southern U.S., much more impacted by the effects of a warming atmosphere. Supersized hurricanes. The hurricanes are strengthening increasingly before hitting land. It's because the oceans are warmer, and more wildfires over the western U.S. and the southwest. So the northern tier, a little more insulated. Chicago will be in better shape than Nashville or Savannah or Hilton Head. But, nobody is immune. There's no place on the planet that won't feel the effects of a warming atmosphere and these supersized storms that are wetter, consistently wetter.
Yeah, and you had the foresight years ago to write a book with another gentleman, I apologize, I've forgotten his name, but about jobs that can get created, that this doesn't have to be a wholly negative story, that we can transition the economy to be a climate change favorable economy. The green economy is a real thing. It's not an AOC thing, and it needs to be developed. Matter of fact, what is the title of that book, and can I still get it?
Caring for Creation.
It's still available.
I think so. I believe it is.
You got a couple copies in the trunk if it's not?
I got a truckload of them.
But it's important. It's important stuff. And you've talked openly about, and Tom Skilling, the great Tom Skilling in Chicago as well, you've talked openly about your transition from being a skeptic about climate change initially to understanding fully on how dangerous this is. Skilling's the same way, same path. And I think so many meteorologists and meteorological science minds have gone the same way. There's very few people who are legitimate scientists who look at this and go, let's see what happens.
It's good to be skeptical about everything. Science is organized skepticism. The biggest skeptics on the planet are scientists, and the fact that you have thousands of climate scientists all agreeing says something. I still think experts matter. I'm not an expert on plumbing or fixing my electrical system. I bring in experts. I don't try to do it myself. I don't rely on some Yahoo on X giving me advice. I go to trusted sources, and that would be these scientists who are all saying the same thing. But
yeah, because I've said it as well. I said, if I get on an airplane, I don't knock on the cockpit door and say, I just saw a video on YouTube. You guys take a seat in the back. I got this.
I've
got a bad left knee that needs to be replaced. I'm not going to go into surgery and go, why don't we save some money and head over to Home Depot? Grab a saw, see if we can do it there.
But you're right. When it comes to medicine, most people, not all, most people want the best doctors and the best treatments and are happy to soak up science and say, okay, what should we be doing to cure this cancer or whatever it is? But with climate change, because it impacts the weather, I think somehow it gives the message that we're all experts. I can look out the window.
Good. Makes me
Yeah,
crazy.
I watched a few YouTube videos, so I know as much as the world's climate scientists. No, you don't.
No, you don't.
Take a seat.
Yeah, take a seat and shut up while you're at it. All right, last piece of this, and I'll just tell people we do a new version of this podcast called Anything But Politics that drops early in the week. And Paul's graciously agreed to stick around for another 3 hours and a wardrobe change to be a guest on that, where we talk about anything but politics, thus the name. See what I did there?
Like that.
So we'll get to that. But the politics piece of this is important because nothing happens in a vacuum. The damage that's occurring now at the hands of whoever is running the country is real. And you and I won't live long enough to feel the full effects of it, but our grandchildren will. And it's offensive to me on a million levels, but the worst of which is to know that my 9, 5, and 1-year-old grandchildren are going to have to pay the price for these asshats and the stuff they're doing now. And the cowards that aren't standing up to it and protecting the country, which, by the way, is their job. So we're a long way away from the midterm elections, but you can haunt your elected reps now, and you can organize now. God willing, you can run now because the system is broken. We need to fix it. It's not going to get fixed overnight, but maybe you're the next person to be in Congress to do the right thing. So what should people in regards to the weather and climate tell their elected reps by phone, by email, in regards to this story?
I think they should reach out at a local, state, and national level. Your U.S. senators, your Congress people, your local officials as well, and remind them that a functional, working National Weather Service shouldn't be open for debate. That the number one thing government can do is protect its citizens. And by making these cuts, these haphazard, stupid cuts in many cases, they're putting all of us at risk. And so I hope it doesn't take a few tragedies where the warnings didn't go out for people to wake up, but make your voices heard. Call your representatives. We could hire, some of these people are gone probably forever, some of the experts. In fact, there's many who are moving overseas. A lot of these atmospheric scientists have been snatched up by other countries. So I think we deserve the best weather service in the world. But, there's a lot going on right now, a lot of dysfunction. And if you prioritize keeping your family safe, then yeah, you should pick up the phone or email or whatever it takes and talk to your representatives and let them know that you are concerned about the cutting and slashing within NOAA and the Weather Service and that we deserve better.
Otherwise, the next time you get on a plane and every time after that when you're nervous, you should be. And for the 90 million people that chose not to vote, you should get really nervous because you own this as well.
Actions have consequences. Yeah, by sitting on your hands, you've enabled this.
Yeah, so nothing changes without asking for change, and a social media post does not change. You've been listening to two old guys on a porch waiting for their lemonade to be delivered. Actually, it's not the case at all. This is all legitimate, factual information, except for a couple of stupid comments I made. But I hope people will pay attention to it, because not only are you one of the funniest people I know, Paul Douglas, you're also one of the smartest people I know. And I know you prefer the funny to the smart, but I'm sorry, you're really smart.
It's very kind of you, but my kids, I've started 7 companies, and in spite of that, I have 2 boys. And on occasion, they'll take me aside and they'll say, Dad, 2 options here. You're either the smartest dumb guy on the planet or the dumbest smart guy. You're my flesh and blood. Really? This is how you really think of your old man. But I've been fortunate. I've been blessed. I've surrounded myself with people way smarter than I am. I've had some good timing and some bad. But, so much of life is being in the right place at the right time. And I appreciate what you do every week here, Steve. And
that's nice.
Keep it going.
It's live from my office, and join us for Anything But Politics. Special guest, Paul Douglas. He and I will be wearing remarkably similar outfits to what you're looking at right now. And join us early on the final week in May for that episode, as we just kick around stuff and we really say stupid things together. Thank you, Paul. And by the way, can we follow you on social media? Can we follow you home? Is there anything you want to plug?
MySpace is still my favorite place to hang out.
You hipster.
Can I give you my AOL email address? No, I'm still on X, although why I'm not sure. I mean, there still is, useful information on there.
And you should go there because when you do post, you post about things that people should know.
Well, I don't post about politics. There are enough people screeching about politics, but I do post about weather and share things that I find interesting. So yeah, P. Douglas Weather on X and also on Blue Sky, P. Douglas Weather. So yeah. Appreciate that, Steve.
And that's why I'm wearing this hat, because we all are hoping to survive 2025.
Amen.
Get yours, survive2025.us. T-shirts available as well. All right, stand by one sec, and we'll reload, and I'll get you out in 20 more minutes. But this part will be really funny.
Okay. Okie dokie.
Be right back.
You bet. Did you take...
Hello?
Did you just take a leak?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you need to?
No, I'm wearing a diaper. I'm good.
One of the things I've never respected is your honesty.
Hell. No, that was fun.
So I may be coming up soon.
Yeah?
Ish. I'm playing around with an idea called Whatever Happened to Steve Cochran, where I come to the Twin Cities and I do a couple of shows.
That'd be great.
And
Let me know when you're here.
Well, I want you to be on it if I do the show.
Oh, hell yes. Can we be irreverent?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So a little stand-up for me and, a little throwback stuff talking about the good.
That sounds great.
The goodness. I think there's an audience for it.
How soon?
Later in the summer.
Okay.
But I think there's an audience for it.
Absolutely.
I still get Minnesota
up here, no question.
I still get Minnesota people coming up and going, "Wow, you got old." Yes, I did. Yes, I did. All right, so I'm going to give you some of the phlegm I'm coughing up. I'm going to give you just topics, and you pick the topics order. That's all. And then we just riff on the stories. I have my list right here. Just need to add one more to it, and then things will be delightful. You could really cut the tension with a knife. What? That's the one I forgot. I found the one I forgot. Aren't you excited? None of that. Do you find you forget things a lot now? I do.
Who are you? Yes. Short-term memory, not great. I do remember the 70s really well.
70s are great. I had a bitchin' haircut. Pardon me and my phlegm. All right, this is live from my office, and this is our brand new effort here. Oh, no, I'm almost blocking out the very important logo on my hat. It is Survive 2025, and if you go to survive2025.us, you can get these handsome T-shirts and hats. I believe this is America's new slogan. Survive 2025. Let's not get too far in advance. Let's just survive right now. Get hats, get T-shirts, wear pants. I'm not selling pants. You'll have to get those on your own. Survive2025.us. My friend Paul Douglas is here. Hopefully by now you've heard his delightful appearance on Live from My Office, the original podcast where we talked about the end of the world as we know it due to climate change, if we don't get off our asses and care enough to do something. Hi, buddy.
Hey, Steve-O.
Welcome back.
Good to be here.
There's a very simple concept, and it goes back to when we would have breakfast together or lunches, or you would be on my radio show, and we would just make each other laugh, where we didn't care that much about what people thought. We'd just talk about stuff.
It's obvious we don't care what people think.
I've made a career out of that.
Yeah.
It's called Anything But Politics, so there'll be no political discussions here, but there are topics in the news that people aren't paying a lot of attention to because so much of the oxygen gets eaten up by what did Trump do now. So we begin with a list of topics. You simply tell me which one you'd like to do first. Take a penny, keep your damn penny. Let's all learn about the weather. Celebrities who are jerks. Crap I'm trying to sell on Facebook. Who said you could push my tush? And degrees. That's actually the last one. The last one's just degrees. So any of those strike your fancy.
Celebrities who are jerks.
Celebrities who are jerks. This is a list of celebrities that surprise me. Now, you and I have met a lot of famous people through the years. My personal feeling, and I'd be curious if you agree or disagree with this, is the celebrity, the star, is rarely the problem. It's usually the surrounding people who are problematic. You agree with that?
Handlers. Yeah. They're trying to keep their celebrity on task and on time, and they can be pretty brusque, pretty rude. Yeah.
So according to, and this couldn't be wrong, according to the internet, according to a couple of Reddits, and according to a couple of Hollywood publications, I have a list of some of the rudest celebrities and some folks that aren't so rude. So I'll give you a celebrity. You tell me if they're believed to be rude or not. Ashton Kutcher.
No, I don't think so.
Rude. Rude.
Is he?
Rude to people. Yeah, doesn't like to be interrupted when he's talking, which is fine. Obviously doesn't want to be interrupted with his children. That's fine. But I heard he killed a guy.
What?
Just seeing if you were still with me.
You're making stuff up now.
Candace Cameron Bure. This was one of the Full House kids.
Not ringing a bell. I'm showing my age.
Rude, dismissive, and God bless her. She's a believer, but she also believes that if you don't believe, she has the right to tell you you're wrong.
Hey, I don't judge lest I be judged. I'm a believer too, but...
Yeah, same here. Christina Aguilera.
Oh, she can't possibly be rude.
Not only rude, mean, cited by 6 different sources as very rude and mean to anyone who would speak with her without a need to or being asked to.
Where did she hurt you? Can you show me?
All right, I'm going to give you a gimme here. This one's easy. Joy Behar from The View.
I'd say rude.
Yeah, you got it. Here's one I refuse to believe. Sofia Vergara.
Well, I hope she isn't rude. She comes off as a sweetheart.
There are some people who say she is rude. I don't buy it.
You know, everybody has bad days.
Yeah.
Everybody, right? I mean...
That's exactly right. Even celebrities.
They judge celebrities in a way that they would never judge themselves or their neighbors or their friends.
That's exactly right. Kevin Costner.
Costner? I'd say no.
A delight. An absolute delight. And especially to kids. He loves kids.
Good.
Clint Eastwood.
I would say he has every right to be rude.
I would agree with that, but he also is said to be very friendly. And a personal story of kind of Clint's sneaky sense of humor. When the Harry Potter gift shop opened up at Universal Studios, a friend of mine who had meetings there was in line buying souvenirs for his kids before he flew home. They also had a smoothie stand there as well. So the person running the Harry Potter gift shop might have to make you a smoothie. So this young UCLA co-ed was having trouble ringing up my friend and all his Harry Potter souvenirs. And he said he felt that trickle of sweat on his back because he knew there was a line behind him. And as he turned around to apologize, Clint Eastwood was standing behind him waiting for a smoothie. And looked at him and smiled and said, "Guess you like the Harry Potter, huh?"
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm glad he likes smoothies, you know. I think
Right.
now.
How about Tommy Lee from Motley Crue, famous for a video that he did with Pam Anderson, where every man that was subject to seeing it said, "That can't be right. That must be camera tricks."
Yeah. I did not see that video. I want to sleep well at night. He comes off as a bad boy. I don't know. I would say probably rude.
Delightful.
Really?
Delightful. Here's the story. My mom and dad were driving around L.A. We stopped to get some food, and there he was. I don't remember the whole meeting because I was a little kid, but Tommy played with me, hugged me, ruffled my hair, told me to be good, and make sure I listened to rock and roll.
Wow. Okay.
How about that? You can't judge every over-tatted heavy metal guy, can you?
No. All that rock and roll and all those drugs eventually, I think, catch up with you. But that's interesting. But again, be generous when you judge people. We all have bad days, right? And just these people are not, robots. And can you imagine when you have that much money, that much fame, the one thing you can't buy is your privacy.
Right.
And so I think some people are gracious. Most people are gracious. But how many, if 100 people came up to you in one day wanting a selfie, wanting an autograph, I mean, I think you might have some issues with that because that's happened to you in Chicago, hasn't it?
Over the course of 30 years, 100 people have come up to me and asked for a selfie. I've totaled all of them up. We just hit 100. Tony Danza and Joe Namath both called rude. Same thing as you just described. I'm sure they had bad days. Plus, Joe Namath's knees hurt. Jimmy Fallon.
Susie, do you remember that? Do you remember that the NFL game where Susie Colbert was on the sideline and he was apparently
drunk,
allegedly inebriated, and he went up to her and
Give me a kiss.
Susie. Kiss me.
I got to say, your Joe Namath is really coming along.
It didn't sound quite like that.
Jimmy Fallon, of course, he's a delight. Newt Gingrich. This is not so much a story about being rude, but I love this story because Newt is, and this is not a political story. This is a comment about a human being. Newt Gingrich's ringtone is Dancing Queen by ABBA. I enjoy that immensely.
Perfect.
Anne Hathaway. You know, there's an undercurrent. There's this Hollywood hatred, too, to some extent, but there's this undercurrent on the internet of disliking Anne Hathaway. She's an incredibly talented actress. She's fall down beautiful.
Yeah.
I've interviewed her many times. She's delightful. All hands, but she's delightful. And I don't know why people are upset with Anne Hathaway. And apparently she's a delight. Some people in New York ended up in a Bikram yoga class with her and said she wouldn't stop talking, and they loved it.
Good. She strikes me as a good person.
And what about Tom Cruise, whose brand new Mission Impossible movie is out?
I hope. Look, the Scientology thing, we could talk for hours about that. But he strikes me as a good dude, and everything I've ever heard is that he is a good dude.
And phenomenal to fans. Phenomenal to fans. I don't know what he's like to work with because they still haven't made a movie with him. But a woman said they were shooting a movie at my university. I was starstruck, and as I walked, I tripped a bit and spilled my books. He stopped working, came over, collected the books for me, made sure I was okay.
Wow.
Smiled, and I thanked him, complimented his work, and hoped he'd have a great time filming there. And he said, feel free to stop by and say hello tomorrow. I want to make sure you're okay.
Damn.
Now, we don't know
That's
how
cool.
cute she was, but, you know.
Yeah. Do you think cute people get more attention?
You know what? The science is in on that one. Yeah. The science is in, and it turns out, yes, in fact, they do.
Wow. Okay.
All right, here are your other topics. Degrees. Take a penny, keep your damn penny. Oh, degrees? You want to go to degrees?
Degrees. Hit me.
Degrees is an interesting topic because what did you graduate with? What was your degree in?
A BS in meteorology. Bachelor
Come
of
on,
Science.
that can't be true.
Bachelor of Science in
A
Meteorology.
BS in meteorology. All right, I'm going to give you the degree. You tell me if it's a real degree or I made it up.
Okay.
Puppet arts,
That's real.
featured at the University of Connecticut.
Wow. That was my
Vending
second
machine
choice.
business management.
What kind of business man?
Vending machine business management.
That's real.
It's fake. I made it up. Costume technology.
I would think in Hollywood that would be a thing. So, yeah, that's real.
I would think so, too. It's actually offered at DePaul University here in Chicago.
DePaul?
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
kidding.
Science of canning meats.
No,
No, but if you go to Hormel, they'll show you how it's done.
I'm sure.
Bagpiping.
A degree in bagpiping?
Yeah.
No.
Carnegie Mellon offers a major in bagpiping.
Can you imagine being the roommate?
When he's learning in the
What
beginning.
fresh hell every morning you wake up. Please, God, take me now.
Playing with jugs. I couldn't even get that one out. Of course, that's only offered in Mayberry. A theme
Parts of
park.
the South, I think that's a profession.
Though I think we can both agree playing with jugs is fun. Theme park engineering.
That has to be real.
It is at California State University, Long Beach.
Nice.
Viking and medieval Norse studies.
Yeah, sure.
What do you mean, sure?
People need to learn about the Vikings.
The University of Oslo in Norway offers a major in Viking and medieval Norse studies.
Oh, I thought you meant Vikings, the team.
Minnesota? No.
The beleaguered team in
Yeah.
Minnesota. Okay.
Auctioneering.
Auctioneering.
Now, this is a college degree now. Can you get a college degree in auctioneering?
I'm just going to say yes.
You can at HACC, Central Pennsylvania's Community College.
Wow. Hey, that could be a good gig. I know some auctioneers who are doing
They
okay.
do well. They
Yeah.
do quite well.
They get a cut.
Example courses include audience communications, auctioneering law, procurement and appraisal of merchandise, preparations for the auction, and, of course, handling groupies. Metalsmithing, blacksmithing in particular,
Yes, there's a need for that.
at Southern Illinois University.
Southern Illinois.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Juggling.
God, I hope not. No.
I'm sorry, I sold that short. Juggling arts.
Juggling arts.
Or the juggling arts.
Like you're juggling paintings or sculptures or what?
Yeah, you go into the Louvre, they give you 3 paintings, and you toss them up in the air. No, the juggling arts. Yeah, the juggling arts. Is that a major?
No.
It was until the Ringling Brothers company had to essentially close down. They offered it as a college degree course.
Wow.
And let's see, one more, because I think it really strikes close to home with you in particular. Casino dealing.
Yes, absolutely.
Wouldn't you think that'd be in Vegas? Would be the primary?
You would think it would be Vegas, yeah.
Primary place for casino dealing degree, Anne Arundel Community College outside of Baltimore.
Baltimore? Where gambling isn't even legal, or maybe it is on some of the reservations. I don't know. That's weird.
It's quite weird.
All
right,
weird.
So we still have take a penny, keep a damn penny. Weather terms.
Weather terms.
Weather terms. All right, this is more of a hope for education from you for us. So I'm going to give you the weather term, and then you tell me, in fact, what it is, if you don't mind. And what would be really great is if I didn't just lose it on my phone. We're going to find it again really quickly here.
That's okay. You can share any texts or notifications.
All right, so here we go. Thunderstorm terms in particular. What is a downburst?
Downburst is a rush of rain and hail-cooled air, usually at the tail end of a thunderstorm, but it can produce winds in excess of 70, 80, even 100 miles an hour. They're fairly rare, but they can produce very strong straight-line winds.
Is it different than a downdraft?
Yeah, every thunderstorm has a downdraft, but some are more violent, and that would be the downburst. That can cause damage, and this is what planes don't want to take off in or land in. When you have sudden shifts in wind direction or wind speed, that can affect the lift on an airplane wing, and it's bad enough. And by the way, most pilots want to see their kids, their grandkids. They don't fly through thunderstorms. And they usually wait for thunderstorms to move away from an airport before resuming takeoffs and landings. But every now and then, these downbursts they've been responsible for some horrific airline crashes over the years. Nothing recently, thank God.
Is it different than a wind shear, or does it cause wind shears?
It does cause wind shear. It is a trigger of sudden wind shear. Yes, wind shear. There are a lot of different definitions for it, but it's a sudden change in wind speed or wind direction. And again, if you're flying through that, it won't rip the wings off, but it can produce severe turbulence. Yeah, cause some damage.
I've never heard this term before, and as you know, I was the weatherman in Grumpy Old Men, and I feel like I should know it.
You nailed that.
A gust front.
Gust front, yeah. Out ahead of a thunderstorm, it's sort of a miniature cool front that can be as much as 5, 10, 15 miles ahead of the storm. So before you see any rain, any hail, any lightning, you get this surge of wind. Again, it's exhaust. Every thunderstorm has an updraft, warm air rising into the storm, and a downdraft. And when that downdraft, that rush of cool air from rain and hail reaches the ground, it can produce a gust front. And that's what triggered the dust storm in Chicago back on May 16th.
And that's how it all ties together, because gust front was also the 4th-round draft pick of the Bears this year.
Gust front.
Yeah. We hear this all the time. Weather technology is such now that major city television stations all have a lot of tricks and toys and things to catch your eyes. And then the local guy wants to impress you with his knowledge of what this and that is. And they always speak of a hook echo. Is that a skyhook echo, like an Abdul-Jabbar sort of thing? Or what is a hook echo?
No. It's tornadic storms rotate. They're called mesocyclones or supercells, and they rotate. And on regular radar, they look a little bit like the number 6, kind of dangling off the main thunderhead. So if you see that configuration, that's often called a hook echo. And now with Doppler, we can go in and take it beyond that and actually see which way the winds are blowing. Are they blowing toward or away from the radar site? And we can derive Oh, yeah, the air has to be rotating in this certain area. It's called a couplet. We can't, in most cases, see the individual tornado. It's too small. But we can see the parent thunderhead spinning. And if that spin is strong enough, the Weather Service will issue a warning. Even if there's no confirmation of a tornado, they want to err on the side of safety.
And one more from this list. By the way, you've scored perfectly so far. You're right on all of these. Mammatus, M-A-M-M, what is it?
Booby clouds?
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mama clouds. How do you pronounce it? Mammatus?
Mamma.
Mammatus.
Mammatus. Cumulonimbus mammatus. Those are the ice cream scoops on the underside of a thunderstorm anvil that have kind of an erotic shape.
They look like boobies.
Called booby clouds.
But they look like hanging boobies.
They kind of do.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that men are pigs. Yeah.
That must have been fun in school when you were back at Penn State when you learned about those that day. I bet you guys had a lot of laughs.
Brings back memories.
All right, I got two more for you. You tell me which one you want first. The tush push or take a penny, keep your penny?
Take a penny.
It was announced just today, we're recording this on May 22nd, that the United States Treasury will stop producing pennies. It's official. God. It's over.
Yeah.
You're troubled by it at all? You and I grew up with, I got to tell you something. When you and I were kids, a penny, a lot of people don't know this, a penny could buy a brand new Lincoln Town Car.
I don't remember that experience. I just remember them being a pain. I don't know. I
don't know what you do with pennies anymore. No, yeah, listen, they're useless, right? Nothing costs a penny. However, hasn't Lincoln been through enough? And now we're going to get rid of it? Come on.
I know. It's an insult to Abraham, but still, it's like, who needs... I got these jars full of change. And now have you noticed that it's not easy to go into a store now? I think Walmart used to do it. Some drugstores where you could take all your pennies and nickels and dimes and dump them in a thingy and get actual money. But
and they take a hit. There's machines. Some are the ones they use in the bank. And the bank loves it. Boy, the bank tellers love nothing more than you coming in with a bag full of pennies. But in the grocery store in various places, you could dump your coins in. Yeah. And then for a small fee of, say, 70% of the take, you'll get cash back from that for the change that you've been collecting. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. What a business model.
So take a penny, keep your damn penny. And finally, stop pushing my tush. The NFL has voted, and they are keeping the tush push as a play. Now, for years in local television, nobody was ever better than you. And I mean this. Nobody, including my friend Tom Skilling. Nobody was ever better than you in presenting the weather in a factual, scientific way and making it funny and entertaining. You're the best I've ever seen.
Well, that's very sweet of you. Thank you, Steve.
But I also know, and I'm going to blow the lid off this story, I also know from spending a fair amount of time on TV when I had hair, that TV newsrooms have a fair amount of downtime, where TV anchors, the people you know best, whether they're weather, sports, or main anchors, spend a lot of time, that's a technical term here, dicking around. So did you ever feel like, and this could have been an HR issue, that your tush was pushed when you didn't ask for it in the newsroom? Did that ever happen?
I was never, no, I don't remember.
You were never involved in a tush pushing incident?
Nobody ever touched my tush, ever, and that's kind of sad. But I do remember at one of the TV stations in the Twin Cities, the sports guy could not stop farting. The main sports guy, he would come into my office, he would back in butt first, tush first, and just unload. It was horrible. It was like toxic nerve gas.
You had every right to kill him. No court in the land would have stopped you.
I had a bottle of Glade, Country Fresh Glade, and I remember chasing him around the station, and his butt was completely soaked with this Country Fresh Glade, and even that didn't stop him.
I have to say that is probably frowned upon in 2025.
We got away with stuff in the 80s that you cannot do now.
The 80s and 90s, where people chased each other with Glade and in a perfectly, I mean, honestly, a rational response to being farted upon.
Well, you have a right to defend yourself.
The tush push remains. My friend Paul Douglas, thank you for joining us for Anything But Politics and on our last episode of Live from My Office as well. You're a valuable voice at all times when it comes to science, the discussion of the same. And you're also a valuable voice when we're talking about squirting another man in the butt with Glade air freshener.
Never take yourself too seriously. And that's why I love you, Steve.
You're the best, buddy. You're the
you
best.
got the facts and you do it with a laugh. So thanks for having me on, and stay out of jail. Stay out of prison for a little while, okay?
Believe me, if I go in, first call is to you. You may want to change the number.
I'm going to put my spam filter on for your number.
Thank you for listening to Live from My Office, a service of Monkey Run Productions. All rights reserved. The podcast is hosted by Steve Cochran, and it's mixed, edited, and produced by me, Ross Cochran. Steve is available for corporate speaking gigs. He would love to MC your event, and occasionally, he's funny. Thank you for listening. Head to cochranshow.com for more.
Apple Electronics is your number one destination for home with the best selection of quality Bosch appliances. Offering a full range of kitchen appliances that deliver superior precision important performance. You can own the kitchen like a Bosch. Their dishwashers and crystal dry technology deliver the ultimate clean. And they're even going to dry plastics. You don't have to have the argument anymore. Well, you didn't dry the Tupperware. Well, you don't have to now. Sleek refrigerators with VitaFresh technology is going to keep your food fresh. It's 3 times longer compared to refrigerators that don't have the VitaFresh. Oh, and they've got these very cool ovens that have a combination air fryer, oven and air fryer together. It's a time saver. It's a space saver. Enduring commitment, quality, and design. It's all Bosch. Makes kitchen appliances invented for life. Thoughtful design runs through every detail of every Bosch appliance. It's a kind of quality that's both lasting and clear. And remember, don't forget about that promotional code, Cochran25, where you can save $25 at Apt or at apt.com. Thank you, Ross Cochran, for putting this together. And thank you for listening and watching Live from My Office.